Jonathan, I want to hear from you a little bit about where you see the trajectory for land. Like we've already talked about how Dudley Land has become the energy, delivering energy through land, right? And focusing on energy as a whole. What are there, trends do you see happening in land and where do you think it's going?
Where do I think it's going? I guess the first answer to your question that comes to mind is the word slow. I don't know if it's going to be good for the final airing, but I want to be real careful. I feel like at least I've tried to bring a great deal of optimism to this discussion today, but there is a reality, certainly when we're talking about carbon storage and how that benefits landowners. That's probably the longest ball uh, that we're driving out of all of this. I'm not a huge believer, as is our team. Uh, the narrative I think that's been advanced for a lot of this development is a little bit more energetic, probably than the timetable that it's going to take to deploy it. And carbon storage, where's the crown as far as that's concerned? These are a lot of optimistic ideas that I'm excited about, encouraged, but it's going to take a lot longer than I think maybe the social media narrative would have you believe.
I agree.
And so in answer to your question, where I see land going is somewhat unclear, even though I seem to be, I feel like I'm and many others clear-minded about where we need to take it. When it gets there, it is still up in the open because you have mindsets that are changing. You have regulatory bodies that do not have laws in place. To Brent's point, there's a lot of misinformation and a lack of understanding. And so wherever it is I see land going, I don't know, this is probably the answer you wanted. I see it taking quite a bit of time to get there. And that's important to know because money's going to get impatient. People are going to get impatient. Legislators are going to get impatient. And the people that are going to benefit right now are those that have their minds fixed on 2030. Whether you're a landowner, whether you're a businessman, whether you're an investor, an energy developer, if you can move at a patient pace while land and energy is in a massive pivot that a lot of people don't understand, some don't appreciate, some don't recognize. Between now and the end of the decade, you're really going to see a lot go over the waterfall into what will be for the next 100 years. And we need to be patient. And so, as far as advancing all of this quickly, which many, many people seem to want, certainly investors and certainly people that manage projects, this is really going to take time to cultivate to get it where we want it to go. It's the third time I've said it. I don't know if that's an answer that exactly you were looking for, but that's the first thing that came to mind is this is going to take time. And for those in energy that have their crosshairs fixed 18 to 24 to 36 months out, I think you need to double that. And if you will, I think you're going to come out probably twice as good as you may think you are. But you're going to have to look a lot further to the horizon, I think.
You're exactly right, Jonathan. There's a lot of excitement, obviously. I mean, you just think about what the last 4 to 5 years has done to our business and the things that we're involved in now that we weren't 4 years ago. 4 years is an extremely short amount of time in the grand scheme of things, and taking an energy or a business from zero to, or an industry from zero to where we need it to be or want it to be. I think that's there's a lot of challenges. I think the best companies obviously will survive. We're already starting to see that in some of these instances where companies are starting to transact. Some are starting to fall off. Others are consolidating and grabbing the top tier assets because they have the highest opportunity for development. We've got a tremendous amount of infrastructure that has to be built in the state. Nobody seems to want to talk about that. I mean, eminent domain is a very difficult conversation to have, and no landowner wants to have that conversation. But the fact is, if we're going to develop all this energy and this electricity, we've got to be able to move it, and we've got to have the capacity to move that. So we've got to tackle that challenge, and that's unfortunately not something that is done quickly. It needs to be done properly, and with the proper amount of attention and sensitivity to the environment, to landowners' rights, to the greater public's right to be able to utilize this power and all this advancement in technology that we have. I think you're absolutely right. I think we're starting to see kind of more of the trend of the last year, and you probably experienced this as well, Jonathan, and more of the direct power purchase agreements where you're not feeding a grid with your project, you're feeding a data center, you're feeding a fulfillment center, whatever it might be. I think the data centers are going to be an interesting development over the next few years with the advancement of AI technology and just the sheer amount of power that they need to run these projects. And then you couple that with the Permian Basin. What was it? Permian Basin Energy Initiative, where the sheer amount of power that's needed for us to fully develop the Permian Basin from an oil and gas standpoint is just it's tremendous. The state of Texas is going to make a lot of investment in that to be able to feed that industry and their needs in West Texas, and all that takes time. Um, you know, Time is investors don't like long term type turnarounds, but I think that's just what it is. It's good for landmen. That's going to continue to provide opportunities for landmen to be of service and to handle these more sophisticated type agreements and negotiations and projects, which is great. We'll go through ebbs and flows of optimism in the land business, but frankly, from my standpoint, I'm very optimistic about opportunities for landmen in the future, as long as you can evolve your skill set and be proactive about how and where you can provide your services. I say it all the time: landmen do land work, and if you can keep that perspective, you will stay busy and you will continue to be a landman tomorrow.